Well, as you can see, I'm wearing glasses, so this video is going to be really smart. Limbus Company, all books referred by the main cast. I think it's going to be really interesting because I know that a character has been, inspired by the books. I know actually a few books personally. I think it's going to be really interesting to see, entire book lore. So let's go. Wait a minute, so content warning, strong language, beautiful. Okay, let's go.
Achilles? It's the Iliad?
Dun, 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 dun.
It's Homer! Read a book!
Limbus
Okay.
Company is the third game project of the studio Project Moon, currently in development. After making
Wait a minute, this video is 4 years old. Well, that's actually interesting because I assume there's not gonna be,
management
spoilers.
sim and a deck building game,
Also, speaking about this, I actually haven't bookmarked the lore of the Lobotomy Corporation. Let me know in the comment section if you would like me to react to this video. It's on my playlist, but the video is like 50 minutes long, so it's a, a huge dedication of the time, so let me know if it's worth reacting to.
the studio decided that the next title they develop should be a dungeon crawler and the city builder as a fourth teased project, because why typecast yourself to a single genre when you can do all of them? I love you, Project Moon. Please never stop. Limbus has been teased for some time now with the reveals of the 12 core characters. And as I said in my Library of Ruina video, the game studio is staffed by a bunch of fine arts nerds. So of course, every character is a reference to a work of literature. Initially,
this is
the
really
characters were drip-fed
exciting.
on the Twitter account @liberarlimbus, which translates to Frida Limbo, basically. First, it was a portrait with the eyes covered, then an emoji, and then a quote from the novel in its author's native language. I would like to apologize in advance to every language I'm about to butcher. With all 12 characters fully and properly revealed, let's dissect the references one by one. In
Okay.
the order the full art was posted on the Twitter account. Though, let me temper your expectations a bit, I'm terrible at actually reading books and some of these are outside of my cultural circles.
Extreme.
So, a lot of this information is brought up from external sources.
Well, I can see we have a couple similarities on the picture. Oh. So it's gonna be...
Metamorphosa
Oh, Kafka.
Ungeheuren Ungeziefer, transformed into monstrous vermin. Gregor is a reference to Gregor Samsa, the protagonist of Metamorphosis, a novella written by Franz Kafka in 1915. Gregor is a traveling cloth merchant working his butt off as the sole breadwinner of his household, which includes his parents and a younger sister. One day, he wakes up turned into a monstrous vermin. His own body doesn't feel right, he cannot get up from bed properly, no food or drink seems as it was before. At first, his sister volunteers to take care of him, but that relationship quickly grows cold as it becomes more and more obvious that this transformation is not temporary, and communicating with Roach Gregor is difficult, to say the least. You might want to give Metamorphosis a try if you struggle with depression or any other illness that might lead to feelings of alienation, is what I'm saying.
And when I'm listening, I believe I read at least like some short version of it. I just don't remember like precisely. Because by the time or by the age when I was reading it, I was far younger than I am. Even though I don't remember specifically, what I read, I remember I had this like really strange feeling after reading it. It just like gave me the chills, left something weird, some weird feeling that I even cannot describe because I don't remember it precisely, but I remember having this like really strange feeling about figuring out, this bug kind of thing.
Limbus Gregor has a roach arm and is surrounded by cockroaches, so the theming is quite overt. His
Kanto one was
ego,
actually
I
good.
assume, is called Ungeziefer, which means vermin in German. Kafka was Bohemian by birth, which is currently the Czech territory, but as that was a territory of Austria-Hungary at the time, he wrote in German. However, Kafka was also Jewish, which is why one word of the quote and Gregor's name are written in Hebrew. And the word Ungeziefer, specifically, was used to describe Jewish people by a certain political party that rose to power some years after Kafka's death. Putting the two languages together here seems very deliberate.
Oh, we got in. Okay.
On by chciał sowsem zabycia, wsio zabyć, patą pronuncja i naciat sowsem syznowa.
Oh,
He
nice.
longed to forget himself altogether, to forget everything, and then to wake up and begin life anew.
Kanto 2 was also good.
Rodion Romanovich Raskolnikov is an impoverished student in St. Petersburg and the protagonist of the novel Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Mikhailovich Dostoevsky, first published in 1866. Despite his poor stature, Rodion views himself as a peer to Napoleon, a remorseless overman, one destined for such greatness that he is not bound by conventional morality that dictates the right and wrong of common folk. One day, both to test himself and to elevate himself out of poverty, he takes up an axe with the intent to murder an old, widely despised moneylender. As the blade of the hatchet ends not just the life of the usurer, but also that of her completely innocent pregnant sister, Rodion very quickly finds out that he is very much capable of remorse. The character art prominently displays gambling, which is a great visual representation both of delusions of grandeur and promises of wealth. And, just like with murder, it's ill-gotten wealth that nonetheless allures people like Rodion with promises of status that would be otherwise unachievable. Her ego is called Raskol, a ref status. Murder, it's both of delusions of grandeur and promises of wealth. And, just like with murder, it's...
We just put a side note, this is the most relatable character to the Limbus Company people, or the fans. Or basically like gacha players in general. We all having a little bit of Rodion within ourselves, don't we?
Ill-gotten wealth that nonetheless allures people like Rodion with promises of status that would be otherwise unachievable. Her ego is called Raskol, a reference to the last name of the novel's protagonist. In translation, it means to split, which is exactly what an axe does to anything that meets its blade.
Well, that makes sense. Oh boy. Kanto 3, peak.
Ich wollte ja nichts als das zu leben versuchen.
Oh, is it German
Was man
one?
selber aus mir heraus wollte. Warum war das so sehr schwer? I wanted only to live in accord with the promptings which came from my true self. Why was that so difficult? Demian, the story of Emil Sinclair's youth, is a novel by Hermann Hesse, first published in 1919. At first, the book was published as being authored by the titular Emil Sinclair, who also serves as the narrator of the story. Emil's entire existence is that of a struggle between the physical world, described as Scheinwelt, which can mean either world of light or world of illusions, and the realm of Platonic ideals. It's very much a story of a man trying to climb out of Plato's cave, and the duality between light of ideals and the shadows it casts in the physical world are clearly represented in the character's art. His ego is called Vogel, which means bird in German. A bird breaking out of its own eggshell is a theme present in the story. The bird, representing a person, must first break out of its shell, the world, to truly be born and be able to fly towards the sky and closer.
When I'm listening and also seeing the picture, I actually noticed that in certain stories, he was having, you know, this like split personality or split colors, and like talking about the being reborn and things like that. I'm actually really curious about, because now I'm basically like halfway in the Kanto 4 as I'm recording this video. I already see that the Sinclair is slightly changing, but I would like to know, obviously I will eventually get there if I happen to finish, you know, all the Kantos, if eventually Sinclair will, you know, kind of 360 and become a new version of himself, having, you know, a little bit more confident ego, because I know at the beginning he was like really, if there is a one word, I would probably describe him as a crybaby, but as the story goes, especially after Kanto 3, he became less crybaby, I would say, but I still feel he haven't completely changed. So I'm very curious if he will eventually change, you know, completely, or if he's still gonna have this, you know, kind of split personality, or, you know, two egos.
To God or truth that encompasses everything. The novel mentions the Gnostic deity Abraxas as being that presides over all, the good and bad, the true and illusory. Bonus points for the fact that this metaphor was stolen wholesale by Utena. Go watch Utena.
Oh. This is gonna be interesting.
Beolin Chonje Lul Asio. Have you ever seen a stuffed genius?
Wait a minute.
Chonje. Bagje Gadeo Beolin Chonje Lul Asio.
Okay.
Have you ever seen a stuffed genius? Yi Sang is the name of a real Korean poet and writer, but the choice of emoji and quote point towards his 1936 short story Wings, in which the narrator is only ever referred to as I. I'll be honest, this one gave me the most issues. The summaries are short and nonsensical, and the author is renowned for his surrealist stream of consciousness style. So, of course, I located an English translation of the story and read it whole. It's like 12 pages, it's way less of a deal than I made it sound. In short, it's a story of a man so disassociated that he neither feels happy nor unhappy, lounging around in his sunless room for days. He doesn't know what his wife does all day, but she feeds him and gives him money, even if he does not enjoy the food and has nothing to spend the money on. But over time, he grows curious. He goes out, he wants to know why his wife keeps having male guests in her room that give her money. He wishes to have someone to give that money to.
God.
As he stumbles from heavy rain into his house, he sees what he should not have seen, hint hint, and his wife feeds him sleeping pills under the guise of trying to cure him from the cold. At the end, the man finds himself on the rooftop, wanting to shout that he wants his wings, his ambitions and dreams that he used to have back. But the words are never uttered. Hell, the entire story
Interesting.
doesn't have one bit of dialogue, it's all tone of voice and summary. Now
I think this would be actually really interesting to read, because for some reason I don't believe the, summary would describe, I guess, the proper message of this book. Also, if it's written in Korean, I would probably have to read it in Korean to giving, the very full context, because sometimes it's really difficult to translate from Korean to even English.
Have to admit, I feel I missed a lot from this story, both in translation and due to lack of cultural context. Could it be
Yeah.
just a story about a man so depressed he never left his room as his wife turned to sex work to feed both of them? Maybe. But considering that I mentions being 26,
There's gotta be more.
the same age as Lee-sang when the story was written, that Korea has been under Japanese occupation all his life, that he suffered from pneumonia that claimed his life a year later, and that Japanese authorities arrested him under suspicion of thought crime, there might be some metaphors here, The Limbus
Yeah,
is
I could
standing
see
in
that
an
coming.
all-white washed-out room, framed in a perspective that doesn't seem to fit his body proportions at all. Around him, splashes of color reflected in mirrors so broken that it's impossible to discern the shapes. Certainly seems to be alluding to a similar sense of alienation from surrounding reality. His ego is called Hayong, and I honestly couldn't find much on it. I've seen claims that it was one of Yi's aliases, but I could not find proof for it. Yi-sang was a pen name to begin with. It might be a reversal of how Yong-ha, one of the most common Korean names, is written, but the characters don't match. If there are any Korean speakers in the audience, please let me know what to make of this.
Well, with my Korean, I better shut up.
Call me Ishmael. Ishmael is the first-person narrator of Moby Dick or The Whale, written by Herman Melville in 1851, which tells the story of Captain Ahab's obsession with hunting down the white whale that bit his leg off on his ship's previous voyage.
This could be also really
At first,
interesting.
I thought that Ahab would fit the shared theme of the Limbus cast better, that being, in one form or another, ego and either embracing it or disassociating from it. The captain's quest is positively insane and rooted in an obsession to take revenge on an animal that he hunted for profit to begin with. But then I thought about it. Who better to fit a theme of disassociation than a character that is part of the events of the story, but who is such a non-participant that nobody ever bothered to ask him for his real name? The name Ishmael in the Bible is associated with orphans, exiles, and other social outcasts, people on the fringes of society. And yet,
Interesting.
it's this one sailor that lives to tell the tale after the ship is sunk by the white whale once more.
As I'm basically in the Canto 4, like halfway through, because as I'm recording this video, this Sunday I'm gonna be playing the part 2 of the Canto 4, and we're getting more screen time of Yi-sang, and he's such a really interesting character, even though he doesn't speak as much, so I believe this is going to be very interesting. Also, for those who are still watching, maybe after finishing this video you can let me know if there are some, additional details to the characters or perhaps the book references, because since this was 4 years ago, I think there's gonna be, more, maybe let's say nuggets that you can guys, put it in. Leave a comment down below if you have, something interesting to say. I usually read all the comments if I have a time.
Her ego is called hers, and in the novel, Ahab is told that before his death, he will see 2 of these, one made from American wood and one not made by mortal hands. The latter is the white whale itself, as a body of the harpooner Fedallah is entangled on top of it. The wooden one is the ship itself, carrying the corpses of all the crew other than Ishmael, who rises to the surface in a coffin that was on board of the ship. Wait, is that the
Is this
motherfucking
JoJo?
reference?
I think this is going to be also the Kanto 5. Really, really interesting Kanto.
I have not broken your heart. You have broken it. And in breaking it, you have broken mine. Coming in hot from the 1847 novel Wuthering Heights, written by Emily Bront, Heathcliff is the epitome of spite. The story centers on two
that kinda sounds like
families,
him.
Earnshaws and Lintons, and Heathcliff is an adopted son of the former house. His life is miserable as he's mistreated by almost everyone but Mr. Earnshaw and his daughter Catherine. The two grow close, but in the end she decides to just stay friends and marry Edgar Linton.
He got
Heathcliff,
friend-zoned.
like the healthy individual,
No wonder he's just so grumpy. Now everything I know about the Heathcliff till the very moment, everything now makes sense after this sentence.
marries Edgar's sister, horribly mistreats her, then, under threat of death, forces his son to marry Catherine and Edgar's daughter to become the owner of both estates. Oh yeah, and he digs up Catherine's corpse to look at her as she died at childbirth. At the end, with his revenge fulfilled and both estates in his name, Heathcliff just loses all will to live and wanders the home of Wuthering Heights, staring blankly at walls, until one day he is found dead with heavy rain pouring over his corpse from an open window. His ego is named Revenge, which is pretty self-explanatory, really. And the character art drives the point of how much misery and death was caused by him because he couldn't marry a woman that was technically his sister.
Yikes.
Por alcanzar
Which book is it?
Inalcanzable. To reach the unreachable star. First released in 1605, The Ingenious Gentleman Don Quixote of La Mancha is a novel written by Miguel de Cervantes. In it, the eponymous bored noble reads so many books on chivalric ideals that he decides to become a knight-errant, slaying monsters and saving ladies in distress, along with his trusty squire Sancho. Only issue is, he lives in a day and age that has long abandoned these ideals, so might
I actually believe that we used to read this, or at least a summary in the school, but I thought the title of the book was a little bit longer.
Even say that they never existed outside of fiction to begin with. Don Quixote has been quite mimetic for attacking windmills, saying that they are hill giants, but there's also things like proclaiming his love to a woman he never met, and trying to constantly be a hero by assaulting people minding their own business, like a procession of pilgrims. The man is so lost in the world of honorable knights and fair ladies, a genre which I need to say was spawned and extremely popular in Cervantes times, that he completely misunderstands the much more complex and interesting world around him. Though he did free a bunch of galley slaves, so at least he did one thing right. However, modern interpretations of the story are much more understanding of Don Quixote, painting him as a man too idealistic for the world he lives in. Most famous modern edition is the Broadway musical Man of La Mancha, from which both the quote and the name of his ego come from. Sueño imposible means impossible dream, which is the name of probably the most famous song of the entire show. The character art prominently features a merry-go-round, spinning around like a windmill and being just a child's play version of riding a horse. Also, I have to mention how one of my mutuals, hi Saf, mentioned how he's the only character in the cast that doesn't look like he would mug you for a pack of cigarettes. It's kinda hilarious, honestly.
The Rich Boy.
All is good, if not for one thing. The road to happiness is strewn with setbacks that won several awards that I learned.
Yeah, I mean, of course, this is gonna be much more appealing, right? Honestly, I think it's actually a really interesting hobby to have. If you like huge dedicated Limbus Company, person, and you basically waiting for the upcoming Kanto and you kinda sick of doing the mirror dungeons all over again. Maybe grab a book or two and, getting, let's say, more inspiration from these books or knowing certain stories of each books. Obviously, I assume that it's not going to be literally like copycat of the entire book, because if I would be making a game, I would just take some inspiration, but not basically translate the book into the character. That just doesn't make much sense. But if you are such a dedicated fan, I think it's actually really interesting for a certain people to, reading the book and finding the similarities between the cantos, the characters, and the books on its own.
When writing the script. Just throwing this out there to anyone else that feels like an ingesting some culture after it was cut into bite-sized pieces by the chef. Their ego is called Taishu Huaijing, which translates to illusory world or universe, which is in line with the dualist themes
that's
of
gonna
real
be
world
interesting.
being all just a set of illusions, like in Demian, and the disconnection someone enlightened would feel from the surroundings.
I think the Honglu like Loki is going to be a really interesting Kanto. It's such a character that I honestly don't care about, but kind of knowing which book has been inspired to, and like he casually mentioning some kind of wealth around his like family surroundings, I could essentially see a really interesting twist of the plot. Okay, this is
での絵師には総じて見にくものの美しさな
this
ど
one's
と
gonna be
申
interesting.
すことはわかろうはずがございませぬ。Other painters are such mediocrities, they cannot appreciate the beauty of ugliness. Alluding to Hellscreen, a 1918 short story written by Ryunosuke Akutagawa, which centers around a famous painter Yoshihide, tasked by the local lord to paint a folding screen depicting the 8 Buddhist hells. Yoshihide is not one to shy away from gruesome study for his work, often doing things like just sitting down next to a corpse laying by the road and sketching it in minute detail. He commits more and more questionable acts, like having an all attack his apprentice, in pursuit of perfectly painting torment and torture, which culminates in him requesting the lord to burn down a carriage with a woman in it, burning alive, as the final piece of the screen. So of course, Yoshihide witnesses his daughter being consumed by flames, finishes his work and hangs himself. But the Limbus character is not named Yoshihide. She's named Ryoshu, which means Lord, and no matter what depravity the painter's obsession committed in the name of art, the one true despicable person in the story is the Lord who commissioned the whole thing. The entire story is framed as a servant telling the story, and despite heaping praise on their sire, it is painfully obvious that the feudal lord is a piece of shit. He's generous, so he offered a favorite servant of his as human sacrifice for a temple. He's just, and that's why he instantly denied Yoshihide's plea to let his daughter stop working at the mansion despite previously stating he can have anything for his previous work. He is honorable, and that's why he tried to rape the girl and had her burn alive when that didn't work out. The background
I don't know, but like so far from all the books that I've listened now, I think this one is the one that if I have to choose which book to basically pick, this is the least priority for me. I don't know, I honestly don't think I would even have a stomach for it.
depicts the hell on earth in the form of the city's back streets. Specifically, the Five Fingers allude to the powerful syndicates known as Well Fingers. Her ego is a set of...
But I also have to say, I think the Limbus Company story of Ryoshu will be like really, really insane. Because so far I would have to say that with each Kanto it's getting just better and better. Like, let's disregard some, you know, characters that I eventually start liking, they will eventually die. Besides that, I think the story overall is getting better and better. So I could see, because like this seems to be like really complex and also a quite bit evil. Since it's basically a Limbus Company, K-Corp Corporation, I think this is going to be the perfect match for the Limbus Company vibes, I would say.
Yojijikugo, Japanese 4-character idioms. They are as follow. Mugamuchu, selfless focus. Abi Kyokai, pandemonium, agonized screams. Shiri Metsuretsu, incoherent, illogical, not making sense. So in full, it can be translated as something like senseless, selfless focus on tortured screams, I think.
Oh boy, this is going to be peak, my boy. If I happen to stop playing Limbus Company for whatever reason, guys, you have to tag me in when the Mersault will have its own Kanto. Literally, I'm just playing this game for this guy.
Aujourd'hui, maman est morte. Oh, peut-être, je ne sais pas. Mother died today, or maybe it was yesterday. I don't know. The protagonist of 1942
That sounds so much like
Mersault, penned
Mersault.
by Albert Camus. Mersault is a man seemingly indifferent to everything. He attends his mother's funeral but does not weep or show other signs of grief. Gets into a sexual relationship just the day after, speaks his mind without a care for other person's feelings and, at the end of the first part of the story, shoots an Arab man in cold blood with seemingly no reason. His internal narration focuses not on the victim or any turmoil caused by his death, but on how bothered Mersault is by the heat and sunlight. His ego is called sun in French, which is the only explanation novel Mersault has for the murder. The sun was in his eyes, and that's why he shot the Arab. Sun not as something to be praised and prayed to, a benevolent force of light and warmth, but an irritating eyesore. Merceau is so disconnected from the world around him that he does not share the common, seemingly universal cultural associations. And Limbus Merceau is so disconnected from the world that there seems to not be a speck of color in his entire character art. It's all
I think the Mersault is the ultimate epitome of the particular book. Maybe I'm just too perceptive because he's my favorite character in a game, but based on the book, I can see a lot of
the
similarities.
same to him.
A lot. That's it?
My
I wanna
name
know
is
more.
Otis. Otis is the Greek word for nobody, most famously used as a pseudonym by Odysseus in the
I mean, that's how I actually feel about the Otis in the Limbus Company as well. Like, she giving me such a nobody vibes. Like, I barely noticing her, at least like so far. Hey, maybe the Kanto is gonna be like, you know, epic, 10 out of 10. But so far, this is one of the most sparable character, I would say. Basically, someone who I'm not even noticing that, you know, the sinner is particularly missing. When she appears, like, oh, okay, she's actually in the team. She's one of the 12 sinners, but when she's not appearing, I'm not like, okay, where's Otis? She hasn't speak for such a long time.
Odyssey, a collection of poems written by Homer circa 8th century BCE. In the
But
Odyssey, when
I like
meeting
the story of
Cyclops,
Odyssey.
Odysseus claims that his name is Otis, or Nobody. When the hero strikes the monster in its one eye, the giant cries, "Nobody is trying to kill me!" And so nothing comes to its rescue, despite it being the son of Poseidon. The ego is the same word but written in Greek alphabet. In general, the character seems peculiar. The ego name is not seen anywhere on the weapon, unlike on the other art. The name repeats itself. The quote is in English rather than Greek. It's as if Otis was a blank slate, devoid of identity, truly a no one. The character art might allude to Trojan War, but that's all I have.
I
On a
really
side
like
note,
the
the
resemblance.
Latin equivalent of Otis is Nemo, so I hope that the Kane office plays some role here.
Oh,
As irrt der
she's a
Mensch,
ghost.
solang strebt. Man errs as long as he strives. Faust is a legendary character, but his most famous rendition is that from the stage play of the same name by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, first published in 1808. The titular scholar is bored of the limits of human knowledge and is approached by a demon called Mephistopheles, offering him magical powers and the ability to do anything he wants for the price of his soul. The catch being that if Faust is ever pleased to the point where he wished that the moment would never pass, he would die instantly. Side note, but I always love the quote from Mephistopheles claiming that he is part of that force that always wills the evil and always produces the good, explicitly stating that he is up to no good, but luring Faust in, claiming the opposite of the road to hell being paved with good intentions. That's what we call a false equivalence, kids. The ego is called Walpurgisnacht, which is the night of Saint Walpurgis. The last
Ooh,
night of April,
Walpurgis.
which in German
The
is
limited
often
banner.
associated with witches meeting on the Broken Mountain and consorting with the devil. As most Saints' X Day, it is believed to be a pagan holiday retrofitted into Christian canon by the church. In the play, Faust visits the Broken on Walpurgisnacht, where Mephistopheles tries to get him laid so that he stops thinking about Gretchen, a young woman that he seduced and impregnated when turned into a young man by magic.
No,
And
by
that's
magic,
all, folks.
okay.
12 characters, 12 accounts of egoism or lack of self. Hopefully, 12 interesting spins on the idea.
Okay, this is really interesting. So Gregor changed self, deluded self, Yiseng self, suppressed by comfort. I could see this to be very relatable to almost like every people. I believe most people are, you know, self-suppressed by some sort of comfort zone. Hong Lu reborn self honestly sounds too epic, so kinda looking for the Kanto. But also like Faust self-sold for power.
Yeah, in Limbus once it comes out. Shame we didn't get any
Interesting.
Polish representation. Yeah, next time. It's always the next time. Actually, quick addendum, as a new character was revealed just as I was editing the audio, so I'm doing this bit.
Oh, did we miss someone?
Dante. Most famously,
Ah.
the protagonist of Devil May Cry. Second most famously, Dante Alighieri wrote the Divine Comedy, which was finished in 1320. It's a story about his journey throughout hell, then purgatory and heaven to find his dead love, with the companionship of his senpai Virgilius. it's very much a fanfic, so never let anyone tell you that
That's
you're
interesting.
a subpar writer because you write fanfics, but it's very important for Italian poetry in general. Interestingly, the ego is named Durante, which was Dante's real name, so there is an implication that rather than ego, this might be, true name, like in demon mythos where someone's true name
Ooh,
gives
okay.
them power over you.
That
which
is
interesting when it
interesting.
repeats with Otis, but, again, this is just speculation based on the fact that we got one art
Otis, what is your true self? I'm nobody. I'm Dante.
that I didn't expect, so, grain of salt.
Well, this was a really interesting and insightful video. I didn't even notice it has been such a 22 minutes because I feel like we only scratching the surface or describe the book like very briefly for each sinner. And I'm gonna be real, I could even listen to a certain characters, yapping or talking about the book references a little longer because I believe not every single book is at least like, to my likings, but a lot of these book choices are really interesting. As I'm seeing the Limbus Company world, most of these books for a very strange reason just make sense, you know what I mean? Like the personalities of each characters, the story behind it or the inspiration of the story behind it, it's just like strangely too perfect for such a lobotomy corporation universe. It's just really strangely satisfying and really, really interesting.